So you want sovereignty, you've been fighting the wrong fight. You've been going about it the wrong way. So let's talk about the legal grounds to challenge sovereign immunity at the federal level. The United States Constitution itself does not explicitly grant sovereign immunity, meaning it's a judicial creation, not a written right. That's your first opening. Here's an argument. Sovereign immunity creates a two-tiered legal system, one for citizens who are fully accountable under law, and one for the government, which is shielded from accountability. This kind of unequal treatment violates the Equal Protection Clause because it denies citizens equal access to justice. It also arbitrarily exempts a class of actors, in this case the government, from legal responsibility. So here's the thing. Immunity actually denies victims the right to a legal remedy when they're harmed by government actors. Now let's talk about a really important case, Marbury v. Madison, from way back in 1803. Chief Justice Marshall said, "The very essence of civil liberty consists in the right of every individual to claim the protection of the laws whenever he receives an injury. If you deny a citizen the right to sue, that's a direct due process violation. It means government actors can harm you without giving you any lawful means to recover damages. And honestly, that's a huge problem." The Constitution guarantees us a republican or representative form of government. That means, basically, no person or entity is above the law. Sovereign immunity is, well, a monarchist relic. It totally violates the principle that all authority comes from the people and that everyone is equally bound by law. If Congress enacts legislation explicitly removing sovereign immunity, that law supersedes all conflicting state immunity statutes. This could be used to federally preempt state sovereign immunity through a Government Accountability Act. These are areas where Congress already gave up immunity, proving that immunity isn't absolute. Congress already waived immunity for some torts, meaning it's a policy choice, not a constitutional mandate. So here's the thing, because immunity is statutory, not constitutional, it can actually be fully repealed without needing a constitutional amendment. Section 1983 already removes immunity for state actors who violate federal rights, at least in theory. The argument here is to expand this, remove immunity for all government levels and for all violations. So here's an interesting development. In 2020, Colorado took a bold step by eliminating qualified immunity for certain cases. And then, just a year later, New Mexico followed suit. It's a significant shift, don't you think? Now let's dive into the argument here. If states can voluntarily choose to remove these immunity protections, well, it suggests that immunity isn't really a fundamental law. This makes it, vulnerable to being overridden at the federal level. Quite a fascinating point to consider. The key move in challenging qualified immunity is to demonstrate that the cases supporting sovereign immunity were, in fact, wrongly decided. They actually contradict earlier constitutional principles. It's all about showing the cracks in the foundation, so to speak. So, this case really entrenched state sovereign immunity in federal court. But honestly, it was based more on assumptions than on the actual constitutional text. The argument here is to overturn Hans, since it's inconsistent with the plain meaning of the 14th Amendment and, the framers' original intent. The court held that states just can't be sued in their own courts without their consent. This strips citizens of all remedies, violating due process. Before the 11th Amendment, the court actually allowed a citizen to sue a state, proving the original understanding was against blanket immunity. To destroy it at the core. So, first up is case selection. You need to find a plaintiff who's been harmed in a way that pretty clearly violates their constitutional rights, but, immunity has blocked any possible remedy. Next, you file in federal court. And here's the thing, you want to target both the government entity and the individual officials involved. Finally, you build your appeal all the way to the Supreme Court. The idea is to, force the court to actually revisit Hans v. Louisiana and those related cases. So here's the thing. We need to push a Government Accountability Act in Congress to repeal FTCA exceptions and preempt state immunity. It's about creating simultaneous political pressure on multiple fronts. If the Supreme Court overturns federal immunity, states lose the legal precedent they rely on to justify their own immunity, which could trigger a collapse under the Supremacy Clause. The bottom line is, Sovereign immunity isn't some sacred constitutional principle, it's actually a judge-made rule that was imported from monarchy. If you challenge it using equal protection, due process, and historical intent, and combine that with political action to repeal its statutory base, it really becomes legally indefensible. Plug in. And hey, don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you stay updated.